Some argue that God is irrelevant, an unnecessary component to human society. Some say even without a God forcing the rules of the Bible down our throats, humanity would have discovered that communities following the logical laws of society are likely to have a greater chance of survival than loners in the wilderness. We don't need a God to tell us that, they say. For morality, we need neither a God nor a Bible, Richard Dawkins tells us in his BBC documentary, Religion, the Root of All Evil. But history repeatedly brings an unwelcome message that we often strive to ignore. The unregulated use of human logic does not lead to a just and moral society. I'll repeat that. The unregulated use of human logic does not lead to a just and moral society. The biological basis of our moral judgment teaches us that the human genome is programmed for pleasure and survival, not for morality. We've got biblically condoned slavery, genocide in the wars. Yet, the same book also teaches love of neighbor and the alien. There is one law for both native and foreigner. Compared to the Greeks and the Romans, 1,000 years after the revelation at Sinai, foreigners were still considered barbarians and were treated likewise. The Torah demands one set of measures and weights for all customers, whether friend or foe. It forbids murder, robbery, oppressing the stranger, a warning that is repeated 36 times in the Torah. It also forbids cruelty to animals. The biblical balance sheet is not as damning as some would have it, but then perhaps the biblical God is schizophrenic, sometimes vicious, sometimes compassionate. God as schizophrenic? No. But God is also not as simplistic as we often paint God to be. If we take a second look at the Bible, we discover the biblical God reveals a far more complex character than the simplistic version of an always in charge, predictable ruler of the heavens and the earth. When passages of the Bible are quoted out of context or read in translation, whether that translation is the 2,200-year-old Greek Septuagint or a modern English version of the original Hebrew, nuances are often lost. Meanings of words are actually changed to fit within the grammar of the newer language. The Bible, if divine in origin, is a message from totally outer space. It requires careful study. To take a quick look at some of these passages that skeptics often bring up, let's consider the nature of slavery as described in the Bible. The Hebrew word for slave is worker, with all the connotations that differentiate the modern concept of slave from that of a worker. In Roman Greece, the slave was no more than an animated tool. The biblical rules for the humane treatment of slaves are so strict that if a master broke the tooth or any other bodily part of a slave, the slave was immediately freed as a full citizen with compensation. The person about to become a slave must willingly sell him or herself into slavery, which would only happen due to abject poverty. Kidnapping and selling a person into slavery was a capital offense. Returning an escaped slave to the master was absolutely forbidden. As for the genocide found in the Bible, which atheists and skeptics flag as being condoned by the biblical God, we get quite a different perspective when viewed from within the text. We will do just that in the next video.